Part 1. The Shadow of the Dead. I live in a house of ghosts, but I am the only one breathing. The mirror never shows my real face. It only shows a dead girl. Her name was Seraphina. She was my perfect older sister. She died 15 years ago in a terrible, violent kidnapping. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Sterling, never let her memory go. They force me to dye my dark hair bright blonde. They make me wear her old, expensive dresses. I am not a daughter to them. I am just a cheap, empty stand-in for their perfect child. Every day, I must practice the violin for hours. My fingers bleed on the thin strings. If I make a single mistake, my mother looks at me with pure disgust. Seraphina never made mistakes. She always whispers coldly. I hate this house. I hate my fake life. Today is my 20th birthday. I expected a small, quiet dinner. Instead, my parents hosted a massive, dark funeral party. It is a memorial for Seraphina's birthday. They forced me to stand in a black dress and cry for a sister I never even knew. I felt completely suffocated by their fake tears. I ran upstairs to my cold bedroom. In a moment of pure, blind anger, I grabbed my expensive violin. I smashed it hard against the heavy wooden desk. The beautiful wood shattered into a dozen broken pieces. As I looked at the broken instrument, I noticed something strange. A small, hidden compartment had broken open inside the violin case. Inside, there was a heavy, black iron key. It had the official symbol of the Sterling family carved into the metal. I stared at the heavy key. My heart began to beat very fast. This key did not belong to any normal door in the mansion. I remembered an old, heavy iron door in the deepest part of the basement. My parents strictly forbade me from ever going near it. They always told me it was a dangerous, unstable storage room. But my parents were full of dark lies. I wiped my angry tears and picked up the cold key. I was going to find out what they were hiding in the shadows. Part 2. The Cursed Basement. I walked quietly down the dark stairs to the basement. The air grew cold and smelled like old dust. I reached the heavy iron door and pushed the black key into the lock. It turned with a loud, heavy click. I slowly pushed the door open. I expected to find a sad, dusty memorial room full of Seraphina's old toys. I thought they were hiding her precious childhood memories. But I was completely wrong. The room was not a memorial. It was a massive, high-tech surveillance and investigation center. The walls were covered in bright computer screens and dark maps. There were hundreds of photographs pinned to a large board. The photos showed dangerous men, weapons, and secret locations. My wealthy, quiet parents were secretly hunting someone with incredible focus and massive resources. I walked closer to the main desk. I found a thick, red file labeled The Blackwood Family. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, there was a very old, yellowed piece of paper. It was a threatening letter stained with dark, dried blood. The letter was not a normal ransom note. It did not ask for any money. The words were written with pure, violent hatred. The Sterling family took everything from us, the letter read. Now we will take your future. Your bloodline will end completely. The final sentence of the letter made my stomach turn cold. The only true daughter of the Sterling family will die. Your roots will be destroyed forever. It was a blood oath. The kidnapping 15 years ago was not a random crime. It was a targeted assassination. I realized my parents had been living in a secret war. The Blackwoods were a rival family trying to destroy our entire bloodline. But why did my parents hate me so much? If the Blackwoods wanted to kill the daughters, my life was in terrible danger too. I needed to find more answers. I looked at the investigation board again. One name was circled many times in bright red ink. It was the name of a woman, Maria. She was a former maid who worked for our family 15 years ago. Part 3. The Mad Maid. I searched the computer files for the name Maria. The records showed she was a loyal maid who suddenly left her job the exact same week Seraphina was kidnapped. But she did not disappear into poverty. The Sterling family bank accounts showed massive, monthly payments sent to her. My parents were paying Maria a huge amount of money every single month. It looked exactly like blackmail. The files also listed her current address. She was living in an expensive, highly secure psychiatric hospital outside the city. I decided to visit her immediately. I drove to the quiet, white hospital. The nurses allowed me to enter a sunny garden where the patients relaxed. I saw an older woman sitting alone on a wooden bench. Her eyes were blank, and she was whispering quietly to herself. It was Maria. I walked slowly toward her. I did not know what to expect. Would she attack me? Would she demand more money? I stood in front of her, casting a shadow over her face. Maria stopped whispering. She looked up slowly and stared directly into my eyes. Her blank expression suddenly shattered. Pure, absolute terror filled her face. She fell from the bench onto her knees in the green grass. She began to cry loudly, reaching out with shaking hands. But she did not call me by my real name. Seraphina. Maria sobbed, crawling toward me. Oh, my beautiful Seraphina. You are alive. I froze completely. I looked nothing like Seraphina's old pictures. My face was very different. But Maria looked at me with the deep, desperate love of a mother. I am so sorry, Maria cried, touching my shoes. I could not stop them. They took you away. I let them send you to the monsters. She was completely hysterical. Her words did not make any sense. Why was this old maid calling me Seraphina? The nurses rushed over and pulled Maria away. She continued to scream my sister's name until they carried her inside. I stood in the quiet garden, my mind spinning with dark confusion. Why did Maria look at me with such fierce, maternal love? Part 4. The Enemy Returns. I drove back to the massive Sterling mansion. My mind was a chaotic storm. I remembered the way Maria cried. It was not the guilt of a maid. It was the pure, devastating agony of a broken mother. A terrifying, impossible theory started to grow in my brain. I sneaked into my father's private study. I knew he kept his most important documents in a hidden wall safe behind a painting. I guessed the code easily. It was Seraphina's birthday. The heavy steel door opened. I pulled out a stack of old, sealed envelopes. I found a dark, yellow folder at the very bottom. It contained an original, unedited birth certificate from 20 years ago. The name on the paper was Seraphina. But the names of the parents were not Richard and Eleanor Sterling. The mother listed on the paper was Maria. The room started to spin. Seraphina was not my biological sister. She was not a Sterling. She was the biological daughter of the maid. My parents had secretly adopted her. The perfect, beautiful girl they worshipped was not even their real blood. Before I could process this massive shock, a loud, sharp noise shattered the silence. The mansion's advanced security alarms began to scream brightly. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. Security breach. Perimeter compromised. I ran to the security monitors on my father's desk. I saw heavily armed men wearing black masks entering the front gates. The Blackwood family assassins had returned. They finally discovered that someone in the house was investigating the past. They came to finish the blood oath. I was completely alone on the second floor. My parents were downstairs in the main living room. I heard the sound of heavy glass breaking and doors crashing open. The assassins were already inside the mansion. I grabbed a heavy bronze statue from the desk to defend myself. I crept quietly down the grand staircase. I hid behind a large marble pillar. I saw my parents standing in the center of the room. A tall, terrifying man in a black mask stood in front of them. He aimed a heavy, modern rifle directly at my father's chest. Part 5. The Reaper's Scorn. I held my breath behind the cold marble pillar. The tall assassin laughed softly. His voice sounded like broken glass. "Hello, Richard," the assassin said cruelly. "It has been 15 long years. I heard someone was looking for me. So, I came to say a final hello." My father stood tall, trying to protect my mother. "You already took everything from us," my father said, his voice shaking slightly. "You won the war. Why are you here? Leave my house." The assassin stepped closer, his dark eyes glowing with pure malice. At that moment, my foot accidentally kicked a small vase. It crashed loudly onto the floor. The assassin turned his gun toward my hiding spot instantly. "Come out," he commanded coldly. I had no choice. I stepped slowly into the bright light, holding my empty hands up. My mother, Eleanor, began to cry desperately. "Please," she begged the assassin, falling to her knees. "Do not hurt Elara. She is just an innocent girl. Take our money. Take our lives. But please let her go." She sounded completely terrified for my safety. I was shocked. For my entire life, she treated me like dirty garbage. Now she was begging for my life. But the assassin did not shoot. He lowered his rifle slowly. He looked at me, and then he looked back at my crying parents. He began to laugh very loudly. "You think I want to kill her?" the assassin mocked, pointing at me. "I do not kill stray dogs. I do not waste my bullets on cheap, adopted orphans." He kicked a chair violently. My oath was to kill the true Sterling bloodline. And I already completed my mission. The assassin smiled a terrifying smile. 15 years ago, I killed your precious, perfect Seraphina. I watched the last drop of your true blood die in the dirt. I know you adopted this pathetic girl, Elara, to fill the empty hole in your hearts. She is a fake. He slung his rifle over his shoulder. I came to kill whoever was investigating me. But I see it as just a sad, adopted girl looking for answers. You are already dead, Richard. Your family tree is completely burned. The assassin turned his back and walked toward the broken front door. Part 6. The Truth of the Bloodline. The assassin walked out into the dark night, completely satisfied. He truly believed he had won the war 15 years ago. The heavy silence in the living room was deafening. I looked at my parents. I expected them to be crying in relief. But their behavior changed instantly. My mother stopped crying immediately. Her face became incredibly cold and sharp, like a dangerous predator. My father did not look scared anymore. He walked calmly to a hidden panel on the wall. He pressed a red button. Heavy steel shutters crashed down, sealing every window and door in the mansion. "What is happening?" I asked, completely confused by their sudden change. Why did he say I was adopted? I saw the birth certificate. Seraphina was the adopted child. She was Maria's daughter. My parents turned to look at me. Their eyes were dark and full of heavy secrets. My mother walked toward me slowly. She did not look at me with disgust anymore. She looked at me with a fierce, terrifying intensity. "The assassin thinks he killed the true Sterling daughter 15 years ago," my mother whispered coldly. "Because we made him believe it." The super twist exploded in my brain. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. My father stepped forward. 15 years ago, we learned about the Blackwood blood oath. We knew they were coming to kill our only baby girl. We had to protect our true bloodline at all costs. My mother reached out and touched my cheek gently for the very first time. "We paid Maria a fortune to adopt her daughter, Seraphina," my mother confessed. "We raised Seraphina in the bright light. We made her the perfect, famous Sterling princess. We used her as a beautiful, shining decoy. When the assassin came, he took the girl in the spotlight," my father said, his voice completely void of emotion. "He killed Maria's child. He killed the decoy. He thought he ended our family." My parents looked at me with dark pride. "You are not the adopted stand-in, Elara," my mother declared fiercely. "You are our only true, biological daughter. You are the sole, legitimate heir to the Sterling Empire. We sacrificed another child so you could live. We hid our true blood in the shadows to keep you perfectly safe." Part 7. The Humiliating Shield. I stumbled backward, completely horrified by their words. "You sacrificed an innocent child?" I yelled, tears streaming down my face. "You let Seraphina die on purpose? You paid a maid to use her baby as a human shield." My parents did not look ashamed. They looked completely justified. "It was the only way to save you," my father said firmly. "The Blackwoods are ruthless. If they knew you were the true daughter, they would never stop hunting you." I looked at my mother, feeling pure disgust. "Then why did you abuse me?" I cried. "Why did you treat me like garbage?" My mother's eyes flashed with dark logic. "We had to make it look real," she explained. "Blackwood spies were everywhere. If we loved you openly, they would suspect the truth. We had to force you to live like a pathetic, unwanted shadow. We broke your spirit to keep you alive. We made you dye your hair. We made you feel weak and submissive," she continued coldly. "A true Sterling is proud and arrogant. By making you act like a broken, cowardly servant, we convinced the enemy you had dirty, common blood. Your humiliation was your absolute, perfect armor. They ruined my entire life, destroyed my mind, and murdered an innocent girl, all in the name of family protection. I hated them more than the assassins." Suddenly, a loud, piercing alarm beeped from the computer panel on the wall. The green lights turned flashing red. "What is that?" my father asked, rushing to the screen. He typed quickly on the keyboard. His face turned completely pale. "The security cameras," he whispered in terror. He did not leave. "The assassin is standing just outside the steel shutters." He planted a listening device in the room. The horrific truth hit us all at the exact same moment. The assassin had heard every single word of my parents' proud confession. He knew the truth. He knew the decoy trick. He knew I was the true, living sterling daughter. The 15-year lie was completely destroyed in 5 minutes. My father grabbed a heavy shotgun from a hidden cabinet. "He is calling for backup," my father shouted. "The entire Blackwoods syndicate is coming here tonight. They are going to finish the blood oath." The fortress was sealed, but we were trapped inside with an army of killers arriving. Part 8: The Night of the Siege. The heavy steel shutters rattled violently. The Blackwood assassins arrived in massive numbers. They used explosive charges to blow open the reinforced front doors. The mansion shook with a deafening boom. Smoke and fire filled the grand hallway. The final, deadly battle for the Sterling bloodline had officially begun. My father cocked his shotgun. He looked at my mother with a silent, determined expression. They had prepared for this exact moment for 15 years. They were no longer cruel, abusive parents. They were highly trained, desperate soldiers fighting to protect their only child. "Run to the panic room in the basement," my father yelled over the sound of gunfire. "Do not stop for anything." He stepped into the smoky hallway and began firing the heavy shotgun. The loud blasts echoed through the house. He was holding them back with pure, violent force. My mother grabbed my hand tightly. Her grip was incredibly strong. We ran toward the kitchen stairs. I looked back and saw my father fighting 3 men. He took a bullet to his shoulder, but he did not fall. He kept shooting, blocking the path with his own body. He was sacrificing his life to buy us a few precious seconds. We rushed down into the dark basement. The sound of the battle upstairs was terrifying. We reached the heavy steel door of the panic room. My mother quickly typed the access code. The heavy door hissed open. "Get inside," my mother commanded, pushing me into the small, bright room. I stumbled inside and turned around. I expected her to follow me. Instead, she stayed outside in the basement hallway. She pulled a heavy, metal grenade from her coat pocket. "Mom, come inside," I screamed, reaching my hand out toward her. She looked at me through the open doorway. Her face was completely calm. "I cannot let them break the door," she said softly. "I have to collapse the basement tunnel. I have to finish my job." She pressed the control panel on the wall. The heavy steel door began to close automatically. "No, please," I cried, hitting the closing metal. She smiled a very strange, sad smile. The heavy door slammed shut and locked tightly from the outside. I was completely trapped in the safe room alone. Part 9: The Mother's Secret. I pressed my face against the thick, bulletproof glass window of the panic room door. I could see my mother standing in the dark hallway. She held the grenade tightly. Suddenly, the basement door crashed open. The tall assassin walked down the stairs, his gun raised. He had killed my father. The assassin saw my mother blocking the panic room. He laughed a cruel, hollow laugh. "You are a very selfish woman, Eleanor," the assassin mocked her. "You killed another woman's baby just to save your own. You are a disgusting monster. You deserve to die." My mother did not look angry. She looked at the assassin with a strange, peaceful expression. "You are right," she whispered loudly enough for me to hear through the speaker system. "Eleanor was a very selfish monster. But I am not Eleanor." The super twist shattered the entire universe. The assassin stopped smiling. "What?" he asked, confused. My mother raised her head proudly. Eleanor died giving birth to Elara 20 years ago, she said clearly. Richard needed a mother to protect his new daughter and play the role. After you killed my beautiful Seraphina 15 years ago, I went completely mad with grief, she continued, tears falling from her eyes. Richard offered me a deal. He paid for extreme plastic surgery. He changed my face to look exactly like his dead wife. I became Eleanor. I gasped in absolute horror. The woman standing outside was not my mother. She was Maria. She was the maid. She was Seraphina's real mother. She had lived for 15 years wearing the face of a dead woman, trapped in a house with the girl who caused her daughter's death. I hated Elara, Maria cried, looking at me through the glass. I abused her because she lived while my daughter died. But I also swore a blood oath to protect her. She is my only family left. Maria pulled the metal pin from the heavy grenade. This is for my Seraphina, Maria whispered. She ran forward and grabbed the assassin in a tight embrace. The assassin screamed in panic, trying to push her away. But Maria held on with the incredible, unstoppable strength of a grieving mother. The grenade exploded with a massive, blinding flash. Part 10. The True Heir. The massive explosion shook the entire foundation of the mansion. The basement tunnel completely collapsed, burying the assassin and Maria under tons of heavy stone and fire. The thick bulletproof glass of the panic room cracked, but it held strong. I was entirely safe. I sat on the floor of the panic room, crying silently in the dark. My mind was completely broken by the truth. My biological mother died when I was born. My father died upstairs to protect me. And Maria, the woman who hated me and loved me, died to avenge her daughter. They were all terrible, cruel monsters. But they were also tragic heroes who gave everything to ensure my survival. I stayed in the panic room for 2 long days until the heavy steel door was finally forced open. The police and rescue teams pulled me out of the dusty ruins. The Grand Sterling mansion was a completely destroyed, smoking crater. I was the only person left alive. A few weeks later, the family lawyers called me into their bright city office. They read the final, official will of my father, Richard Sterling. There was no mention of stand-ins or decoys. The documents clearly stated, I leave my entire empire, all wealth, and absolute power to Elara Sterling, my only true daughter and the sole queen of this family. I signed the papers with a steady hand. I did not cry. The weak, abused girl they created was permanently dead. I inherited a billion-dollar empire and a massive, hidden network of power. I walked out of the lawyer's office wearing a sharp, dark suit. My hair was no longer blonde. It was my natural, dark brown. I looked at the city skyline with cold, calculating eyes. I picked up my phone and called the head of my father's secret security team. Find every single remaining member of the Blackwood family, I ordered calmly. Do not leave a single shadow alive. Burn their roots completely. The abused stand-in was gone forever. The true, ruthless heir had finally awakened.